The kitchen was filled with the warm smell of blini and honey when the world stopped spinning. Alina Brooks stood frozen at the stove, the wooden spoon trembling in her hand as she stared at the 5-year-old girl sitting at the granite countertop. Lila Harrington had just spoken for the first time in 2 years, and her words had shattered the morning silence like glass hitting concrete. "Who hurt you, Alina?" The child's voice was small, hesitant, rusty from disuse, but the question was clear, painfully clear, and it hung in the air between them like a living thing. Alina's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it wanted to break free. The wooden spoon clattered onto the cold marble floor. The security alarm had gone off just minutes before. Someone had tried to access the service entrance of the estate. The security team had handled it quickly, professionally, turning away the intruder before he could even set foot on the main grounds. But Alina had heard the commotion. She had heard the angry voice screaming through the intercom, demanding to see her. She knew immediately who it was. Travis, her ex-husband, the man she had escaped from 3 months ago, the man who had sworn he would find her no matter where she ran. And Lila had seen the fear on Alina's face. The little girl had been coloring at the kitchen counter, her dark hair falling over her drawing paper, her small fingers clutching a purple crayon. She had looked up when the alarm sounded. She had watched Alina's face go pale. She had seen the terror flash across those warm green eyes. She had seen the way Alina's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. She had seen everything, and something inside Lila had broken open. Lila. Dimitri Harrington's voice cracked. He set his coffee mug down on the nearest surface without looking. It tipped over, dark coffee spreading across the granite countertop. He didn't notice. He couldn't take his eyes off his daughter. "Lila, sweetheart, you're talking." The child turned to look at her father, her blue eyes so much like her late mother's swimming with tears. "Daddy?" she whispered, then louder, stronger. "Daddy!" Someone scared Alina. Someone was yelling at the gate. I saw Alina couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt around her. This wasn't how this moment was supposed to happen. For 2 years, Dimitri had been waiting, hoping, praying to hear his daughter's voice again. He had hired specialists, therapists, doctors. He had tried everything. And now, on this random Saturday morning, Lila was finally speaking. But instead of joy, the moment was soaked in fear and pain. "Lila, sweetie," Alina managed to say, her voice shaking. She moved around the counter slowly, carefully, the way you approach a frightened bird. "I'm okay. I'm safe here. Your daddy's security team took care of it." "But you were scared," Lila insisted. Her small face scrunched up with concern, far too mature for a 5-year-old. "I saw you. You looked like I felt when Mommy Nadia." The child's voice broke, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Dimitri was across the kitchen in 3 strides. He scooped Lila up from her stool and held her against his chest, his own steel gray eyes wet with tears. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. You're okay. Alina's okay." He looked at Alina over his daughter's head, his expression a mixture of wonder, confusion, and something deeper. Everyone is safe, but Alina could see the questions in his eyes. Who was at the gate? Who was trying to reach her? Who had hurt her badly enough that a child could recognize that kind of fear? They had grown close over the past 3 weeks. She and Dimitri closer than employer and employee should be. He knew some of her story. He knew she had left a bad situation. He knew she was trying to rebuild her life, but he didn't know the details. He didn't know about Travis's rage, about the bruises hidden under long sleeves, about the 4 years she had spent walking on eggshells, about the night she had finally run with nothing but a backpack and the clothes on her back. He didn't know how broken she had been when she arrived at his door looking for work, and now his daughter was calling her mommy. Lila pulled back from Dimitri's chest, her small hands framing his face. "Daddy, I want to talk now. I have so many things to say." But first, she turned her head to look at Alina first. "I need to know, miss, Alina is safe. Like you keep me safe. Can you keep her safe too? Can you?" The question was so earnest, so pure in its simplicity that Alina felt her knees weaken. This child, this precious little girl who had been locked in her own silence for 2 years, had found her voice again because she wanted to protect someone else. Not because of her own pain, but because she recognized pain in another person. Dimitri's jaw tightened. He looked at Alina with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Yes," he said firmly. "I can keep her safe. I will keep her safe. Both of you. Always." "Promise?" Lila asked. "I promise, Princess. I promise." The little girl nodded, satisfied. Then she wriggled out of her father's arms and walked over to Alina, reaching up to take her hand. "It's okay, Mommy," Lila said softly. "Daddy's promises are real. He never breaks them. He promised Mommy Nadia he would take care of me, and he does it every day. So if he promises to take care of you, he will." Alina dropped to her knees so she was eye level with the child. Tears streamed down her face and she didn't bother to wipe them away. "How did you get so wise?" she whispered. Lila shrugged, a gesture so childlike it was almost funny. "I had a lot of time to think. When you don't talk, you watch people more. You see things." She paused. "I saw you were sad when you first came here. Sad like Daddy. Sad like me. But then you started to smile. Real smiles. The kind that reach your eyes. Daddy smiles like that now too." She tilted her head. "When he looks at you," Dimitri made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He ran a hand through his disheveled, dark, curly hair. He was still in his pajama pants and a dark gray t-shirt. This wasn't how he had planned to spend his Saturday morning, but nothing about the last 2 years had gone according to plan. "Lila," he said gently, "why didn't you talk before? The doctor said you could. They said there was nothing physically wrong. We've been so worried." The child's face grew somber. She looked down at her feet, her small shoulders hunching. "I saw something bad the day Mommy Nadia died." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw her car. I saw the man with the gun. I saw—" She swallowed hard. "I saw everything, Daddy. And I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't make the words come out. They got stuck. And then at the funeral, everyone was so sad. And I thought if I talked about what I saw, it would make everyone sadder. So I just stopped. I stopped talking altogether." She took a shaky breath. It seemed easier. The room was silent except for the sound of 3 people breathing, 3 hearts breaking and mending at the same time. Dimitri knelt beside Alina, forming a small circle with his daughter between them. "Oh, Lila. Oh, baby. You've been carrying that alone all this time." Lila nodded, fresh tears falling. But then Mommy Alina came and she was carrying something heavy too. I could see it. The way she jumped when doors closed too fast. The way she checked the locks every night. The way she always sat where she could see the doorways. She looked at Alina just like me. I thought she continued. I thought, if I could see her get better, maybe I could get better too. And then this morning when that man came, when I saw her scared face, I knew I had to use my voice, because maybe if I had used my voice before, if I had told someone what I saw about Mommy Nadia, maybe someone could have helped. She squeezed Alina's hand tighter. "But I can help now. I can tell Daddy that Alina needs protecting. So that's what I did." Alina pulled the child into a hug, holding her close. "You are the bravest person I have ever met," she said fiercely. "Do you know that you are so brave, Lila Harrington?" Dimitri wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a cocoon of safety and warmth. The 3 of them stayed like that for a long moment, healing in each other's presence. Finally, Dimitri pulled back, his hand cupping his daughter's cheek. "I need you to tell me what you saw about Mommy Nadia." His voice was gentle but serious. "Not right now, but soon. When you're ready." "Can you do that?" Lila nodded. "I can do that. I'm ready now." Then she turned to Alina. "And I need to know," she continued, looking up with clear blue eyes, "who was at the gate? Who tried to get in? Who hurt you before you came here?" Alina swallowed hard. This was the moment she had been dreading. But Lila had been brave enough to speak after 2 years of silence. The least Alina could do was be brave enough to tell the truth. "His name is Travis Kane," she said quietly. "He was my husband. We were together for 4 years. He wasn't a good person. Not to me. And when I finally left, he told me he would find me. He told me I couldn't hide from him. He told me I was his, and I would always be his." "Tracked you," Dimitri finished grimly. "His tracked you," Dimitri finished grimly. His expression had gone cold, the warmth in his steel-gray eyes replaced by something harder. "Let me guess. He's a cop." Alina nodded, surprised. "How did you know?" "Because only someone in law enforcement would have the resources to track someone this carefully. And because men like that," his jaw clenched. "I know the type." He stood, his movements controlled but tense. "Stay here with Lila. Don't leave this room." He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "I'm calling my head of security. We're going to handle this right now today." He paused, his expression softening. "He's never going to get near you again, Alina. I promise you that. But Dimitri, I don't want to bring my problems into your home, into Lila's life. Maybe I should just... No." His voice was sharp, brooking no argument. "Don't even finish that sentence. You're not leaving. You're not running again. You're staying right here where you're safe, where Lila needs you." He paused, his expression softening. "Where I need you." The admission hung in the air between them. Lila looked up at Alina with wide eyes. "See, I told you. Daddy's promises are real, and he likes you. I can tell. He looks at you like he used to look at Mommy Nadia." She tilted her head when he was happy. Alina's heart clenched. She looked at Dimitri, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his daughter's words. She saw the care, the concern, the something more that had been building between them over the past 3 weeks. She saw a man who had been broken by loss just like she had been broken by abuse. She saw a man who was trying to be strong for his daughter. She saw a man who was offering her safety without asking for anything in return. She saw a man she was falling in love with. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." "Good." Dimitri's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Now, let's get this sorted out. All of it. No more secrets, no more silence. We're going to talk about everything, what Lila saw, what you've been running from, all of it. And then we're going to figure out how to move forward together." "Together," Lila echoed, reaching out to take both of their hands, like a family. Alina looked down at the little girl, at her earnest face and hopeful eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. Like a door that had been locked for years suddenly swinging open, like light pouring into dark corners, like hope. "Like a family," she agreed. And in that moment, standing in the sunlit kitchen with blini cooling on the stove and coffee spreading across the counter, 3 broken people began the work of healing together. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard conversations ahead, painful revelations, moments of fear and doubt, but they would face it together. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak up, and sometimes the kindest thing you can do is listen. And sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, in the most unexpected ways when you're not even looking for it. This was just the beginning. Have you ever met someone who changed everything just by being brave enough to speak? Someone whose courage gave you permission to face your own fears? Lila found her voice again because she wanted to protect someone she loved. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next healing story. 3 months ago, Alina ran in the middle of the night. She remembers that moment exactly. Every second and every minute burned into her memory like a scar that would never fade. Travis came home late that night, his breath thick with the stench of whiskey, his eyes clouded by drunkenness and a rage that had no clear source. She had learned to read those signs after 4 years together. The way he slammed the door harder than usual. The way he threw his keys onto the table instead of setting them down gently. The way he said her name in a voice as cold as steel. "Alina." Just one word. and it made the blood in her veins turn to ice. She was standing in the kitchen pretending to wash dishes, even though she had finished a long time ago. She did not turn around. She did not dare to. She just stood there, her back rigid, her hands sunk in warm water that was slowly going cold. And she waited. His footsteps were heavy on the wooden floor. One step, one sound, one knife driving into her heart. Then his hand grabbed her hair and yanked her head back. Where did you go this afternoon? Where had she gone? She had gone to buy medicine, painkillers for the bruises he had left on her the week before. But she could not say that. She could never say that. I went to the grocery store, she said, her voice trembling, to buy things to cook for you. Silence. Terrible silence. Then a mocking snort of laughter. The grocery store closes at 8. You got home at 9 for 1 hour. Where were you, Alina? She did not have time to answer. His hand tightened around her throat and shoved her into the wall. She could not breathe. She clawed at his arm, her legs kicking wildly in the air. The world began to blur, bright spots dancing in front of her eyes. Then he let go. She collapsed onto the floor, coughing violently, tears streaming down her face, not from pain, but from pure fear. Travis stood over her, looking down with a gaze she had seen far too many times. The gaze of an owner staring at what belongs to him. Next time, he said coldly, you tell me before you go anywhere, understand? She nodded. She always nodded. Travis walked away into the bedroom, leaving her there on the freezing kitchen floor. She heard the bed creak when he lay down. A few minutes later, his snoring filled the air. That was when Alina knew. Tonight or never, she crawled up, not daring to stand upright for fear of making a sound. She slipped into the living room where she had hidden a small backpack behind an old wardrobe in the corner. Inside were a few changes of clothes, some cash she had saved by cutting back on grocery money each week, and the prepaid phone she had bought in secret 2 months earlier. She took nothing else. No photos, no keepsakes, nothing that could make her hesitate. She opened the back door as quietly as she could and slid out into the cold Chicago night. It was raining, a fine drizzle like watery dust. She had no umbrella. She had no heavy coat. She had only trembling legs and a heart hammering madly inside her chest. She ran. She ran down the alley behind the house through the neighborhood lying silent in the dead of night. Across streets she had never walked alone at this hour. She ran until her lungs felt as if they would burst, until her legs could not carry her another step, until she collapsed onto a bench at a bus stop 3 miles from the house she had once called home. She sat there soaked through, shaking, and for the first time in 4 years, she truly cried. Not crying from pain, not crying from fear, but crying from relief, from freedom, from finally doing what she believed she would never be brave enough to do. She had escaped, but in her heart, she knew this was not the end. Travis would find her. He had sworn it. And he was a police officer. He had resources she did not. He had coworkers willing to help. He had an entire system on his side. And her, she had only a small backpack, and the fragile hope that somewhere out there was a place he could not reach. St. Mary's Shelter sat on the far southern edge of Chicago, an old red brick building with narrow windows and a heavy iron door. Alina found her way there on the 3rd day after the night she ran. After spending 2 nights sleeping at a bus station and in a church that opened its doors to the homeless, Evelyn Grant, the shelter manager, was the first woman who looked Alina in the eyes without judgment. She was around 50, her silver hair twisted into a neat bun at the nape of her neck, her warm brown eyes seasoned by life. She did not ask much that first day. She simply gave Alina a clean bed, a set of dry clothes, and a bowl of hot soup. "You can tell me when you are ready," Evelyn said, "or you can tell me nothing at all. Here we do not force anyone." Alina stayed at St. Mary's for 2 months. Those 2 months were the longest days of her life. The shelter had 20 beds for women, and every woman there carried a story of her own. Some were running from husbands like she was. Some had been thrown out because they could not pay rent. Some were struggling with addiction and trying to get clean. The look in their eyes, the look of people who had lost everything and were trying to find themselves again. Alina did not sleep much in the first weeks. Every night she lay on the narrow bed, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, her heart skittering at every unfamiliar sound. She dreamed of Travis. She dreamed of his hand clamped around her throat. She dreamed of his cold voice echoing inside her head. "You belong to me forever. You belong to me." She would wake drenched in sweat, needing a few seconds to remember where she was. The most frightening thing was not the nightmares. The most frightening thing was that Travis found her twice. The first time she was at another shelter on the north side of the city. He showed up at the gate in his police uniform, telling the security guard he was looking for his missing wife. She had to slip out the back door and run to St. Mary's in the middle of the night. The second time he went to the home of an old friend, the only person Alina had dared to contact for help. That friend called her, voice shaking, and said Travis had come asking questions, and he looked very angry. After that, Alina never reached out to anyone from her old life again. Evelyn was the only one who knew the whole story. She listened without interrupting when Alina spoke about 4 years of a marriage from hell, about bruises hidden beneath long sleeves, about the restraining order she had managed to get, and how it meant nothing when Travis's coworkers always looked the other way. Evelyn did not offer cheap comfort. She simply held Alina's hand and said one plain sentence: "You cannot keep running forever, Alina. It is time to build a life again." One afternoon, near the end of the second month, Evelyn called Alina into her office. She laid a newspaper clipping on the desk, circled in red ink. "I think I may have found what you need," she said. "A job, a place to live, and most important." She looked straight into Alina's eyes. Security that not even a police officer can get past. Alina picked up the clipping and read the bold print. Wanted childcare provider and housekeeper. Live in absolute confidentiality. For the first time in 3 months, Alina felt a thin thread of hope flicker inside her. Alina sat on the narrow bed in the shared dormitory, the prepaid phone resting in her palm, slick with sweat. She had stared at the number on the newspaper clipping for 30 minutes, trying to gather enough courage to press call. Evelyn had told her about the Harrington family. They were very wealthy, fiercely private, and protected by a security system stricter than anything Alina had ever known. The man who owned the house was a powerful businessman, a widower, raising his young daughter alone. 5 housekeepers had come and gone over the past 2 years. None of them fit. "They need someone special," Evelyn had said, "not someone perfect, someone who understands pain." Alina drew a long breath, and she called. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. Harrington residence, a man's voice, low, cold, and strangely tired. Not the tiredness of someone who had not slept, but the tiredness of someone who had carried too much for too long. "Hello, my name is Alina Brooks. I'm calling about the housekeeper and childcare position." Silence for a few seconds. Then the voice returned, still cold, but edged with a flicker of curiosity. "What experience do you have? I worked as a nurse for 2 years before my circumstances changed. I know how to care for people. I'm patient, and I need somewhere safe to start over." She hesitated. "I'll be honest with you. I'm running from a violent marriage. I have a restraining order, but my former husband is a police officer. That order doesn't do much." She did not know why she told the truth like that. Maybe she was too tired to pretend anymore. Maybe because if he was going to reject her for her past. It was better to know at the beginning than to hope and then be crushed. The silence lasted longer than before. Alina thought the man would hang up. She had braced herself for it, but instead his voice came again, a little softer. "I have a daughter, 5 years old. Her name is Lila." He paused as if weighing each word. "She doesn't speak. It's been 2 years. Not a single word since her mother died." Alina felt her heart tighten. "The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong," the man continued. "She can speak. She just chooses not to." The previous housekeepers all tried to force her, tried to fix her like she was something broken that needed repairing. "I don't need that." His voice hardened. "I need someone patient, someone who accepts her as she is, someone who doesn't try to change her just because her silence makes them uncomfortable." Alina closed her eyes and the image of herself rose up in her mind. 4 years of silent endurance. 4 years of not daring to speak the truth. She understood what it meant to lose your voice, even in a different way. "I understand," she said softly. "I understand that feeling when the words get stuck inside, when silence becomes the only way to protect yourself." The line went quiet again. Alina could hear the man breathing on the other end. "Can you come in for an interview this afternoon?" he asked at last. 3 o'clock. I'll text you the address." "Yes," Alina said, her voice trembling with relief. "I'll be there." "One more thing, Miss Brooks." His voice was serious now, but no longer cold. "We have security 24/7. No one gets in unless I allow it. No one." For the first time in 3 months, Alina felt like she could breathe. Evelyn drove Alina to the Harrington estate. Arriving at exactly 3 o'clock that afternoon, the whole way there, Alina sat in silence in the passenger seat, her hands clenched together in her lap, trying to steady the wild rhythm pounding inside her chest. When the car turned onto the road leading into the Gold Coast, Alina began to understand this was not an ordinary family. The mansions lining the street grew larger with every block, more lavish, more untouchable, until they stopped in front of a black iron gate rising more than 3 meters high, its scrollwork intricate, security cameras fixed at every angle. "You'll be all right," Evelyn said, giving Alina's hand a gentle squeeze. "Just be yourself. That's the only thing you need to do." Alina nodded, drew a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The gate opened after she pressed the buzzer and gave her name. She walked along a stone path into the grounds, and with every step she felt more overwhelmed. The mansion rose before her like a castle from a fairy tale, Gothic revival architecture with gray stone walls, soaring stained glass windows, and sharp spires reaching into the afternoon sky. The gardens were trimmed to perfection, rose bushes in full bloom along the walkway, and somewhere nearby came the sound of water from a fountain. But what caught Alina's attention most was not the luxury. It was the men in black suits spaced throughout the property, their cold eyes sweeping over her from head to toe. Security, not the ordinary kind hired by rich families. This was the kind of security worn by men accustomed to danger, men who had faced real threats and survived. She swallowed hard, climbed the stone steps, and knocked. The heavy oak door opened, and Alina came face to face with the man she had spoken to on the phone that morning. Dimitri Harrington was taller than she had imagined, probably over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a solid frame that looked as if it had been forged from steel. His dark hair, loosely curled, was combed back, revealing a sharply angled face with high cheekbones and a square jaw. A faint scar ran from his temple down his left cheekbone, like the mark of some battle long ago. But it was his eyes that held her, gray as metal, cold as ice, and yet deep inside them was a sadness she recognized at once. The sadness of someone who had lost what mattered most. Miss Brooks. It was not a question. It was a confirmation. "Yes, Mr. Harrington." He nodded and stepped aside, motioning her in. Inside, the estate was even more impressive than it looked from the outside. The main hall stretched wide beneath a soaring ceiling, a crystal chandelier glittering overhead, and a spiral staircase curving up to the floors above. Oil paintings hung along the walls, furniture upholstered in red velvet, and polished marble floors. Everything spoke of wealth and of power. But then Alina noticed other details. A cloth doll lying on the stairs, a few coloring books scattered across the sofa, a tiny pair of pink shoes tossed carelessly in a corner, and on the refrigerator door in the kitchen, which she glimpsed through a doorway. Crayon drawings were taped everywhere. This was not only an estate, it was a home trying to live something like a normal life in the middle of what was not normal at all. "Sit," Dimitri said, leading her into a study. The room was flooded with light from a large window, lined with bookshelves that reached the ceiling and a desk of black oak. On the desk, beside a stack of documents and a computer, lay a framed photograph turned face down. He sat across from her, his gray eyes fixed on hers as if he were trying to read every thought she carried. "You said your former husband is a police officer," he began, blunt and direct. Alina had not expected him to ask so plainly. She drew in a breath. Dangerous enough that I left everything behind and ran in the night. Dangerous enough that he found me twice, even when I tried to erase every trace. Dangerous enough that she hesitated. Dangerous enough that I don't know whether I would survive if he finds me again." Dimitri said nothing. He only looked at her, his face unreadable. Then he nodded as if her answer had confirmed something he had already known. "Here," he said slowly. "No one can lay a hand on you unless I allow it. Not the police, not anyone." The way he said it made Alina believe him. This was not an empty promise. This was fact. When the conversation in the study ended, Dimitri rose and motioned for Alina to follow. They climbed the spiral staircase and walked down a long hallway lined with family photographs. Alina noticed one woman appearing in most of them. Honey blonde hair, a smile bright as summer sun, and clear ocean blue eyes. Nadia, Dimitri's late wife. The mother Lila had lost. Dimitri stopped at a door painted lavender purple. The doorknob decorated with tiny, delicate flowers. He knocked softly twice. "Lila, there's someone Daddy wants you to meet." No answer. "Of course." The little girl did not speak. Dimitri opened the door and stepped inside with Alina behind him. Lila's room looked like a small fairy tale made real, pale violet walls, white curtains fluttering in the breeze, a princess bed with a canopy of sheer gauze. On the bookshelf sat dozens of stuffed animals of every kind, from teddy bears to unicorns, from a pink rabbit to a gray elephant. And in the center of the room, seated on a plush furry rug, was a tiny girl with hair black as her father's and eyes blue as her mother's. Lila did not look up when they entered. She was holding a brown teddy bear, turning it slowly in her hands, her gaze fixed on empty space as if the outside world did not exist. "Lila," Dimitri said gently, his voice softening as though he were speaking to the most precious thing in his life. "This is Miss Alina. She may come work here, take care of the house, and stay with you. Would you like to say hello?" No response. Lila remained still, her blue eyes not turning toward them. Alina watched the child, and something inside her quietly melted. She recognized that look, the look of someone trying to become invisible, trying to shrink so no one would see them, so no one could hurt them again. She had seen that look in the mirror for 4 years without waiting for Dimitri to say anything else. Alina slowly lowered herself to the floor beside the rug where Lila sat. She did not sit across from her. She did not stare into her face. She sat beside her, facing the same direction, as if they were two people looking out at the same world. "Your bear is so sweet," Alina said softly, her voice making no demands, offering no pressure. "When I was little, I had a teddy bear too, but I lost it. I had to leave it behind when I had to go." Silence. But Alina saw Lila tilt her head just a little, as if she were listening. "I know you don't want to talk," Alina went on, still looking straight ahead instead of at the child. "That's okay. Sometimes I don't want to talk either. Sometimes silence is easier, safer." A moment passed. Then, very slowly, Lila turned. She did not look at Alina's face. She looked at Alina's sleeve, where an old bruise still showed faintly beneath the thin fabric. Those ocean blue eyes blinked once, twice, as if something was clicking into place. Then, Lila did something that left both Alina and Dimitri stunned. The little girl held out the teddy bear and placed it into Alina's hand. Alina took the bear, feeling the softness of its artificial fur beneath her fingers. She looked at Lila, and for the first time Lila looked back. Those clear blue eyes were no longer empty. There was something there now, fragile but real, a connection, an understanding. "I'll hold your bear for you," Alina whispered. "Or do you want me to give it back?" Lila shook her head. Then she pointed at the bear and pointed at Alina. "You want to give it to me?" Alina asked. A small, gentle nod. Alina felt her eyes sting. She pressed the bear to her chest as if it were the most precious gift she had ever received. Behind her, Dimitri stood silent in the doorway, and the steel gray in his eyes was no longer cold. There was astonishment there, and there was hope. She has never offered something to a stranger on her own, he said, his voice rough. Not once. Never. Alina did not speak. She simply sat there beside Lila, the teddy bear in her arms. And for the first time in 6 months, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Alina was hired that very afternoon. Dimitri did not explain much. He only looked at her with those steel gray eyes and said a single sentence. You start tomorrow. Your room is on the 3rd floor. Alexei will take you to get your things. Alexei Petrov, head of security, was a Russian man around 45, built like a bear with a face that never showed emotion. He drove Alina back to St. Mary's to collect the few belongings she had, and he did not speak a word the entire way. But when she stepped out of the car, he said quietly, Mr. Harrington doesn't trust easily. You must have done something special. The 3 weeks that followed were the most peaceful days Alina had known in years. She quickly learned the rhythm of the estate. Lila woke at 6:45 every morning, took 10 minutes to choose her clothes, then came down to the kitchen for breakfast at 7:30. The little girl liked scrambled eggs with cheese, orange juice in a blue cup, and milk in a pink cup. She brushed her teeth for exactly 2 minutes, no more and no less. Her eyes fixed on the timer on her electric toothbrush. Everything had order. Everything had rules. Everything had control. Alina understood why. When the outside world is chaotic and frightening, small routines become anchors. She had been like that too. She still was. Maria Lopez, the family's cook, was the first person who made Alina feel truly welcome. She was around 58, her silver hair pinned neatly back, her hands rough from years of work, but always warm when she took Alina's. She taught Alina to cook the Russian dishes Lila loved: blini with honey, bright red borscht, dark bread with butter. She remembers her mother through these foods, Maria explained. Nadia always cooked them for her every weekend. Lila did not speak, but she communicated in her own way. She nodded or shook her head to answer questions. She pointed to what she wanted. She drew pictures to express her feelings, colorful drawings of a house, trees, and 3 people standing side by side with one person always crossed out in black. What struck Alina most was the way Lila began to follow her everywhere. If Alina folded laundry in the laundry room, Lila sat beside her, helping stack tiny pairs of socks. If Alina wiped the windows, Lila stood close, her finger tracing meaningless shapes on the fogged glass. If Alina read in the library, Lila brought her picture book and sat pressed close, shoulder to shoulder, as if that closeness was what she needed to feel safe. But Alina noticed other things too. Things that made her heart ache. Lila always sat where she could see the doorway. She startled at every loud noise. She checked the lock on her bedroom window every night before she slept. She never turned her back to the door, never stood in the middle of the room, never placed herself anywhere without a way out. Alina recognized those habits because she did the same things. She sat where she could see the exits. She flinched when a door slammed. She checked locks every night, sometimes twice, 3 times, until she could finally believe she was safe. They were alike, she and Lila, 2 people from different worlds carrying the same wordless fear on their shoulders. One evening, as Alina read to Lila before bedtime, the little girl suddenly lifted her head and looked straight into Alina's eyes. Those ocean blue eyes were clear, but older than her years, as if she had seen far too much, far too soon for a 5-year-old. Then Lila raised her hand and touched Alina's wrist, where a faint scar still showed faintly beneath the skin. She did not say anything, but Alina understood. I see it. I know. I hurt like that too. Alina took that tiny hand, held it tight in her own, and whispered, We're going to be all right, both of us. And one day everything will be all right. Lila nodded, then curled into Alina's lap, closed her eyes, and fell asleep in Alina's arms. It was the first time Lila had chosen to let anyone besides her father hold her. Dimitri Harrington was a ghost in his own home. He left before the sun came up, and he returned after Lila was already fast asleep. In those first days, Alina rarely saw him, only the traces of his presence. A cup of coffee gone cold on the desk. Late-night meetings in the sitting room with men in black suits speaking Russian. The sound of a car pulling away into the dark and coming back before the sky turned light. But every night, no matter how late he came home, he went to Lila's room. Alina discovered this in the second week. She was walking down the hall to get water when she saw his silhouette outside his daughter's door. He did not go in. He only stood there, his forehead resting against the wooden frame, one hand pressed to the door as if he were trying to touch something on the other side that he could not reach. In the dim hallway light, his face was no longer cold as steel. It was broken, exhausted. It was the face of a man carrying a grief so heavy he did not know where to set it down. Alina retreated quietly, not wanting to interrupt that private moment. But from that night on, she began to see Dimitri differently. She realized he was not cold. He was only trying to be strong, trying to keep everything from collapsing, trying to be all that Lila needed. While he himself was coming apart from the inside, Alexei told her about Nadia one afternoon when they happened to be drinking tea together in the kitchen. She had been the light of their boss, the Russian man said, his voice low and far away. She knew who he was, knew what he did, and she still loved him. When she died, part of him died with her. Alina did not ask about Dimitri's work. She did not need to. She had seen enough to understand. She saw the men in black lower their heads when Dimitri walked past. She saw Alexei always carrying a gun beneath his suit jacket. She heard the late-night phone calls Dimitri answered in clipped Russian, his voice cold as ice. She saw the way people spoke his name with fear, not simple respect. Dimitri Harrington was not an ordinary businessman. He was something more dangerous, more powerful, and darker. But strangely, Alina was not afraid. She had lived with a dangerous man for 4 years, a man wearing the mask of a good person dressed in a police uniform, torturing her behind closed doors. Travis was dangerous in a hidden way, petty, cruel to those weaker than him. Dimitri was different. His danger was not aimed at her. It was a shield, not a weapon. One evening, near the end of the second week, Alina was showing Lila a book in the sitting room when Dimitri walked in. He paused in the doorway, looking at the two of them on the rug. Lila's head resting on Alina's shoulder. The picture book spread open in her lap. Alina looked up and met his gaze. Those steel gray eyes were no longer cold. There was softness there, gratitude, and something else, something she did not dare to name. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then he turned away and stepped back into the hallway shadows, leaving Alina with her heart racing inside her chest. She did not know when she had started waiting for moments like that. She did not know when his eyes had become something she searched for each day. She only knew that under this roof she was starting to feel something more than safety, and that frightened her more than Travis ever had. Dimitri did not waste a single second. Right after the three of them stepped out of that embrace in the kitchen, he pulled out his phone and dialed. His voice was still cold as he spoke in Russian. Sharp commands Alina could not understand, but could feel in the weight of every word. Alexei appeared within 2 minutes, as if he had been waiting just outside the kitchen door the whole time. The Russian man's face showed nothing, but his eyes were sharper than usual when they landed on Alina. "Report," Dimitri said, short and flat. "Subject is Travis Kane, 32 years old, an officer with the Chicago Police Department currently suspended due to an internal affairs investigation related to violent conduct." Alexei read from the tablet in his hand, his voice even like he was reading the weather. He showed up at the side gate at 8:17 this morning. Requested to see his wife, was refused. He became agitated and threatened to return with a search warrant. Security escorted him off the property. "A search warrant?" Dimitri asked, and his tone turned dangerous enough that Alina felt cold along her spine. Even though the words were not aimed at her, he has no legal basis to obtain one. He is suspended with no authority. It was an empty threat, but he will come back. "Absolutely." Dimitri was silent for a moment, his gray eyes fixed on the kitchen window, where the garden lay bathed in the pale light of a winter morning. Then he turned to Alina, and his gaze softened just slightly. "Can you take Lila upstairs? I need to speak with Alexei alone." Alina nodded. She bent down and took Lila's hand. The little girl stood quietly beside her, ocean blue eyes darting between her father and Alina with a worried look. "Come on, sweetheart," Alina said gently. "Let's go upstairs and play." Lila did not move right away. She looked up at Dimitri and then she spoke, her voice small but clear. "Will Daddy protect Alina, Mom?" Dimitri knelt and lifted his daughter's chin so he could look into her eyes. "I already promised, Princess. Have I ever broken my word?" "Never," Lila answered with absolute trust. "Then you do not need to worry. Go with Alina, Mom. I will come up later." Alina led Lila toward the stairs, but as they passed the living room doorway, she heard Dimitri's voice behind her, cold and terrifying in a way she had never heard from him before. "I want to know everything about him, weaknesses, secrets, the things he hides, and I want it before noon today." "And if he comes back?" Alexei asked, a stretch of silence, then Dimitri's voice, each word dropping like a piece of ice. "If he dares to set foot on this property one more time, I will make him understand why people fear the name Harrington." Alina shivered, but not from fear. From the first time in 6 months, someone was fighting for her. Someone was standing between her and the nightmare, and that person did not hesitate. She kept guiding Lila up the stairs, her heart skittering in her chest, behind her. Alexei's voice carried up again. "I will contact our people inside the police department and call the lawyer. If he wants to play the law, we will play. If he wants to play another way," he paused. "We are ready for that too." "Good," Dimitri replied. "And Alexei, one more thing." "Yes, sir. From now on, Alina and Lila do not leave the estate without an escort. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No exceptions." "Understood." Alina stopped at the top of the staircase, her hand gripping Lila's tightly, and felt something strange rise in her chest. Not fear, not worry, protection, shelter. The feeling of being valued so much that a powerful man like Dimitri Harrington was willing to use every resource he had to keep her safe. She had forgotten what that felt like. That afternoon, after Lila had gone down for her nap, Dimitri knocked on Alina's door. She opened it and found him standing there, still wearing the dark gray t-shirt from that morning. His black curls mussed as if he had run his hand through them too many times. Those steel gray eyes held a seriousness she had never seen in him before. "We need to talk," he said. "In my study, if you're ready." Alina nodded and followed him downstairs into the room where they had met for the first time 3 weeks earlier. Late afternoon sunlight poured through the large window, spilling over the floor to the ceiling, bookshelves, and the black oak desk. The picture frame on the desk was still turned face down, just as it had been before. Dimitri closed the door and gestured for her to sit in the leather chair across from the desk. He did not sit behind it like an employer interviewing an employee. Instead, he pulled another chair close and sat facing her, close enough that their knees nearly touched. "I need to know everything," he said, his voice gentle but unshakably firm. "Not to judge you, to protect you the right way. I can't fight an enemy I don't understand." Alina drew a deep breath. She had known this moment would come. She had feared it for 3 weeks. But after what had happened that morning, after the way Lila had spoken so bravely, after Dimitri's promise, she knew she could not keep hiding. "I met Travis 6 years ago," she began, her voice trembling slightly at a friend's party. "He was charming, funny, attentive. He was a police officer, and I thought that meant he was a good man, someone who protected justice, someone you could trust." A bitter laugh slipped out of her. "I was so wrong. We got married after a year of dating. At first, everything was perfect. Then he started to change. Slowly, little by little. He didn't like me going out with friends. He wanted to know where I was all the time. He checked my phone, my email, everything." Alina looked down at her hands clenched in her lap. "I made excuses for him. I thought he was just jealous because he loved me too much. I thought it was a sign of love. It wasn't," Dimitri said quietly. "It was a sign of control." She nodded, her eyes stinging. "I know that now. Back then I didn't see it, or I didn't want to. The first time he hit me was 8 months after we got married. I came home late because of traffic, and he thought I was lying. He slapped me. Just one slap. Then he cried. He apologized. He swore he would never do it again. She paused, her voice thick and bitter. I believed him. But he did it again. The second time, the third, the 10th. I stopped counting after a year. He didn't just hit, he choked me. He threw things at me. He shoved me down the stairs. Alina pulled up her sleeve, showing a faint scar along her arm. This is from the time he used a piece of broken glass. He said I made him lose control. He said it was my fault. Dimitri said nothing, but his jaw clenched so hard Alina could see the muscle twitching beneath his skin. I tried to run twice in the first 2 years. Both times he found me. He was a police officer. He had co-workers everywhere. He had access to information ordinary people don't. And when he found me, she shuddered. He punished me. He said if I ever left again, he would kill me. And I believed him because I looked into his eyes and I saw he meant it. Then why did you run anyway? Dimitri asked, his voice rough. Alina looked up, her eyes full of tears. Because that night he was drunk and he choked me until I almost passed out. When I looked into his eyes, I didn't see anger anymore. I saw emptiness. I knew if I stayed one more night, I would die. She swallowed hard, so I waited until he fell asleep, and I ran. I ran with a backpack and $200. I didn't look back. Silence settled between them. Then Dimitri reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not move, he took her hand, his grip warm and steady. You survived, he said, low and fierce. You fought. You got out. That isn't weakness. That is the most extraordinary strength I have ever seen. Tears spilled down Alina's cheeks. She did not try to wipe them away. He will never touch you again. Dimitri went on, each word a vow. I swear that to you. If I have to use everything I have, if I have to do anything, he will never hurt you again. Alina looked into those steel gray eyes and saw something she had never seen in anyone else before. Not pity, not judgment, respect and resolve, and maybe, just maybe, something that looked like love. Dimitri did not let go of her hand. He sat there, his warm palm holding hers, and Alina could feel the restrained strength in every one of his fingers. This was the hand of a man accustomed to violence, but doing everything he could to be gentle. You need to understand one thing, Dimitri said, his voice low and slow. I'm not a good man. Not in the way the world defines it. My work, my family. We didn't build this empire on kindness and honesty. He paused, his gray eyes fixed on hers, not turning away, not hiding. But that also means I have resources ordinary people don't. I have people inside the police department. I have the best lawyers in this city. I have ways to make a man disappear from your life without laying a finger on him, his head tipped slightly. Or if I have to, I have other ways. Alina swallowed hard. She knew what he was saying. She knew what other ways meant. Dimitri, I don't want you to do anything illegal because of me. I don't want you to get in trouble. He smiled faintly, a smile that did not reach his eyes. Trouble is my daily work, Alina. One corrupt cop who beats his wife isn't what I fear. But there is no but. His voice was final. You're part of this family now. Lila needs you. She spoke for the first time in 2 years because of you. Do you know what that means to me? Alina shook her head, not daring to speak. It means you did what 10 doctors, 5 therapists, and millions of dollars couldn't do. You reached my daughter. You gave her a reason to speak again. His grip tightened around her hand. So whether you want it or not, I'm going to protect you. Not because you work here, because you matter. To Lila. And to me. Alina's heart raced. She did not know how to respond to those words. She was used to being dismissed, controlled, treated like an object. She was not used to being valued. I've already called the lawyer. Dimitri went on, his tone returning to something more professional. We're going to file for a new restraining order, stronger than the old one. This one will cover this estate and anyone connected to you. At the same time, I will file a complaint against him for harassment and for violating the existing restraining order, but he has coworkers in the department. They'll cover for him. His coworkers don't have more power than mine do. Dimitri said it simply as if it were an obvious fact. He thinks he has connections. I'm going to show him what real connections look like. He stood still holding her hand, drawing her up with him. From now on, you don't need to worry about Travis Kane anymore. You only need to focus on one thing. What? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dimitri looked at her, and the gray in his eyes softened in the same way she had only seen when he looked at Lila. Healing, he said quietly. You and Lila, healing together. That's the only thing you need to do. The rest, leave it to me. Alina felt tears rise again, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were the tears of someone who had finally found a harbor. That evening, after dinner, Lila walked over on her own to where Dimitri and Alina were sitting in the living room. She climbed onto the sofa and sat between the two adults, her ocean blue eyes serious in a way no 5-year-old should ever have to be. With one hand, she took her father's hand. With the other, she took Alina's as if she were trying to link them into a circle. I want to tell it now, Lila said, her voice small but steady. About Mama Nadia. About that day, Dimitri drew in a sharp breath. Alina felt his body go rigid beside her. For 2 years he had been waiting for this moment. Don't have to. I want to. Lila nodded with that don't have to. I want to. Lila nodded with fierce certainty. I've kept it inside for too long. It's heavy. I want to put it down. Alina gave the child's hand a gentle squeeze, offering silent encouragement. Lila took a deep breath, and then she began. That day, Mama Nadia picked me up from preschool. I was so happy because she promised she would buy me ice cream on the way home. She was singing along with the song on the radio. Mama sang so well, Daddy. She always sang when she drove. Dimitri closed his eyes. A single tear slid down his cheek. Then our car stopped at a red light. I was looking out the window, counting birds on the power line, and then I saw a black car pull up next to us. There was a man sitting inside. The man looked into our car, looked at Mama. Lila's voice trembled, but she kept going. Then that man took out something. I didn't know what it was at first, but then I heard the bang. It was so loud. The window shattered. Mama. Mama pushed me down onto the floor of the car. She laid on top of me. I couldn't see anything anymore, only hear the bangs, hear the glass breaking. Here, Mama. Here, Mama. She started to cry, big tears rolling down her cheeks. Mama told me to stay there. Mama told me she loved me. And then Mama didn't say anything anymore. Dimitri pulled his daughter into his arms, holding her tight as if he was afraid she might disappear. His shoulders shook with strangled sobs. Alina had never seen him cry. She did not think he could cry, but now, with his child in his arms, he was breaking apart. When the bangs stopped, Lila went on. Her voice choked. I tried to look up. I saw that man get out of the car and walk closer to ours. He looked inside, looked at Mama. Then he saw me. Alina held her breath. He had a snake tattoo on his neck, a black snake wrapped around his neck. He looked at me for a long time. I thought he was going to shoot me, but he didn't. He turned away, got back in his car, and drove off. Silence flooded the room, only Lila's sobbing and Dimitri's heavy breathing. I remember his face, Daddy, Lila said, her voice tiny. I remember the snake tattoo. I wanted to tell you a long time ago, but every time I tried, the words wouldn't come. They got stuck in my throat, and I was scared. I was scared if I said it, that man would come back. He would find me. He would make me like Mama. Dimitri lifted his daughter's face and looked into her water-filled ocean eyes. Listen to me, he said, his voice shaking but fierce. That man can never hurt you. Never. I have. I have found him a long time ago. He doesn't exist in this world anymore. Lila blinked. Is he dead, Daddy? He will never hurt anyone again. Alina understood what lived inside those words. She understood what Dimitri had done to avenge his wife. She understood how dark his world could be. But in this moment, watching him hold his child, watching tears slide down his face, she did not see a mafia boss.
She saw a father shattered by guilt, because his wife had died instead of him, because his daughter had witnessed what no child should ever witness.
"I'm sorry," Dimitri whispered into his daughter's hair. "I'm sorry you had to see those things. I'm sorry Mama was. I'm sorry I couldn't protect her." Lila pulled back from his arms, her small hands lifting his face, mirroring the gesture she had made that morning. "It's not your fault," she said, her voice strangely steady. "Mama Nadia protected me. Mama loved me, so she protected me. That isn't your fault. That's love." Dimitri gathered her into his arms again, and this time Alina was drawn into that embrace too. The three of them sat there holding one another in the soft yellow lamplight of the living room, and they cried. They cried for what had been lost. They cried for the pain kept hidden. They cried for secrets that had finally been spoken, but they also cried for relief, for release, for the last wounds laid open to the light so they could finally begin to heal. Lila drifted off in her father's arms after she finished telling her story. Dimitri carried his daughter upstairs, laid her into the princess bed beneath its white gauze canopy, tucked the blanket around her with careful hands, and kissed her forehead for a long time. Alina stood in the doorway, watching that powerful man bend over his little girl, and she felt her heart soften in a way she could not control. When they returned downstairs, the house had fallen into silence. Maria had gone home long ago. Alexei and the security team were on duty outside. It was only the two of them now, standing in the living room with firelight from the hearth dancing along the walls. Dimitri poured 2 glasses of red wine, handed one to Alina, and sat down on the sofa. He did not keep his distance the way he had before. He sat right beside her, shoulder nearly brushing shoulder, the warmth of his body reaching her in the sharp chill of a winter night. "I owe you an explanation," he said, his voice low and worn. "About Nadia? About why she died?" Alina did not speak. She simply waited, giving him room to share it in his own way. "Nadia knew who I was when she agreed to marry me." Dimitri stared into his glass, turning it slowly in his hand. "She knew about my work, about my family, about the things we did to build this empire. She wasn't naive, but she loved me, and I loved her so much. I thought love could protect her from everything." A bitter laugh escaped him. "I was wrong. That day, the shooting, it was meant for me." His voice tightened. "I was supposed to be in that car. I was supposed to pick Lila up from school, but I got trapped in a meeting. Nadia went instead. And my enemies. They didn't know she wasn't me. Or maybe they knew and didn't care." Dimitri set his glass down and covered his head with both hands. "She died because of me, Alina. Because the people who wanted to kill me killed her instead. Lila lost her mother because of me. My little girl had to watch her mother get shot because of me." His voice broke. "I killed my wife." Alina put her glass down and turned toward him. She lifted her hand, hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed it against his cheek and gently turned his face toward hers. "You didn't kill Nadia," she said softly, but with quiet certainty. "The men with guns killed her. You didn't pull the trigger. You didn't drive that car. You didn't choose that. But if I wasn't, if you weren't who you are, Nadia wouldn't have loved you. Lila wouldn't exist." Alina held his gaze, looking straight into those gray eyes full of pain. "You can't change the past. You can only live with it, and you are living. You're raising Lila. You're keeping your promise to Nadia every day." Dimitri looked at her, and something shifted in his eyes. The defenses fell away. The coldness drained out. What remained was simply a man exhausted from carrying guilt for too long. "How can you say those things?" he asked, his voice rough. "After everything you've been through, how can you still look at the world with eyes like that?" Alina gave him a sad smile. "Because I spent 4 years blaming myself, asking what I did wrong for Travis to treat me that way, thinking if I were better, quieter, more perfect, he wouldn't hit me." She shook her head. "It took me a long time to understand it wasn't my fault, and this isn't yours either." Silence settled between them. The fire crackled softly in the hearth.
Outside, winter wind moved through bare branches. Then Dimitri lifted his hand and placed it over hers, still resting on his cheek. He held her hand there, his warmth seeping into her skin. "Nadia would have liked you," he said quietly. "She would have liked the way you care for Lila, your gentleness, the strength that lives beneath your softness. I wish I could have met her. She was my light." Dimitri looked into Alina's eyes, and something in that look made her heart miss a beat. "When she died, I thought I would never find light again." And now he didn't answer with words. He only looked at her, his fingers tracing lightly over the back of her hand. And in those steel gray eyes, Alina saw the answer. She saw hope. She saw possibility. She saw a future she had never dared to dream of. And for the first time in many years, she wasn't afraid of it. The days that followed drifted by like a dream Alina could not quite believe was real. Dimitri started coming home earlier, not at midnight the way he used to, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes even earlier. He would appear in the kitchen doorway while Alina was fixing Lila an afternoon snack, a bunch of wildflowers in his hand that he said he had picked from the garden. He would sit on the living room floor and work on puzzles with his daughter, and the sound of his laughter filled the house like something new and precious. Lila changed in a way that was impossible to miss after she found her voice. She talked constantly, as if she were trying to make up for 2 years of silence. She told them about her dreams, about the teddy bear she had named Misha, about the pictures she drew, about everything. And in every story, she always mentioned Alina Mom as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Dinner became family time. The three of them sat around the kitchen table instead of the large, cold dining room, talking about their days, laughing over small things. Maria began cooking more, saying she liked seeing the table lively again, the way it used to be. And in the middle of all of it, there were moments that belonged only to Dimitri and Alina. Their eyes would meet across the table and linger longer than they needed to. Their hands would brush when they washed dishes together, and neither of them hurried to pull away. They would sit side by side on the sofa after Lila fell asleep, shoulder to shoulder, sometimes talking, sometimes simply listening to the fire crackle in the hearth. 1 week after the night, they shared everything. Dimitri kissed her for the first time. They were standing on the back porch, looking out at the garden, blanketed in white snow beneath the moonlight. Lila had been asleep for hours. The air was bitterly cold, but Alina did not want to go inside. She wanted to stay here in this moment with the man beside her. Dimitri turned and looked at her, his gray eyes shining under the stars. He lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted to. His fingers touched her cheek, gently sweeping a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I've wanted to do this for a long time," he whispered. Then he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was light as a butterfly settling on a flower, but it set Alina on fire from the inside. She had forgotten what it felt like to be kissed like this. Not a kiss that demanded, that claimed, but a kiss that offered, that cherished, as if she were something so precious he was afraid of breaking her. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard, their breath rising in white clouds in the cold air. "What does this mean?" Alina asked, her voice trembling. "It means I'm in love with you." Dimitri said it simply, as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. "It means I want more. I want you here not just because of a job, but because you choose to be here with me, with Lila, with us." Alina's heart raced. She had been afraid of this, afraid of opening up, afraid of trusting, afraid of loving again after everything Travis had done to her. But when she looked into Dimitri's eyes, she did not see Travis. She did not see control or possession. She saw gentleness, respect, love waiting for her to accept it. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared to love again. I'm scared, too." Dimitri took her hand and placed it over his chest where his heart was pounding hard. "But maybe we can be scared together." Alina smiled, for the first time in a long time, a smile with no hidden sorrow behind it. "Together," she repeated. The next morning, Lila caught them holding hands at the breakfast table. She did not look surprised. She only looked at them with ocean blue eyes sparkling, gave a thumbs up, and said, "I knew it." Daddy looks at Alina Mom of the way he used to look at Mama Nadia when he was happy. Dimitri laughed, a clear sound Alina had never heard from him before. My daughter is so smart, he said.
Yes, I know, Lila replied and went right back to eating her blini as if her father falling in love with the housekeeper was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe in this family it was normal because they had learned that love did not need to follow a pattern. It only needed to be true.
Happiness did not last long before the ghost of the past came back. 1 week after their first kiss, Alexei knocked on the door of Dimitri's study, his face set like stone. Alina was in the room with Dimitri, going over the documents their lawyer had sent about the new restraining order. She looked up when she saw the Russian man's expression, and she knew at once that something was wrong.
Urgent report, Alexei said, his voice tight. Travis Kane showed up at Lila's preschool this morning. The blood in Alina's body turned to ice. What? Dimitri shot to his feet, the swivel chair skidding back and striking the wall. He dared to go near my daughter. He came at dismissal time, asked the teacher about a woman named Alina, said she was his wife, and he was looking for her. Alexei glanced at Alina, worry filling his eyes. Luckily, our security team was there. They recognized him from the photograph in the file and immediately got Lila to the car. He did not reach the child. Is Lila all right? Alina asked, her voice trembling. She is all right. A little frightened because they had to leave quickly, but she is all right. Dimitri said nothing. He stood with his back to them, both hands braced on the desk. Alina could see the rigid set of his shoulders, every muscle holding back something violent, something immense. When he turned around, his gray eyes were no longer steel. They were ice, cold, ruthless, terrifying in a way Alina had never seen before. This was not Dimitri, the man who kissed her gently under moonlight. This was Dimitri Harrington, the mafia boss all of Chicago feared. He dared to touch my daughter. He said, each word dropping like a cold stone. He dared to come to Lila's school to threaten my family. Dimitri? Alina began. No. He lifted a hand, cutting her off. I have been patient long enough. I tried to play by the rules, restraining orders, lawyers, the legal way. He shook his head, but he does not understand that language. He understands only one thing. What do you want me to do? Alexei asked, calm, as if he were asking about the weather. Find out everything about him. Everything. Any corruption he is tied to, any colleagues who cover for him, any secrets he is hiding. Dimitri paused. And I want to know where he is. Every second. Every minute. Where he goes, who he meets, what he does. I want to know it all. Alexei nodded and left. Alina stood and walked to Dimitri. She placed her hand on his arm, feeling the hard tension of muscle under the fabric of his shirt. What are you going to do? She asked softly. Dimitri looked down at her, and for a moment the ice in his eyes eased just a little. I'm going to end this, he said. Once and for all. I do not care if he is a police officer or anything else. No one threatens my family without paying for it. I do not want you to get into trouble because of me. Dimitri lifted her chin and looked straight into her eyes. You are family, Alina. Lila sees you as her mother. He hesitated. I love you, and I will do anything to protect the people I love. Anything. The way he said it with absolute certainty made Alina feel both frightened and safe. She knew Dimitri was not making empty promises. She knew he was capable of things ordinary people would not even dare to imagine. And the most frightening part was that she was not sure she wanted to stop him. Dimitri did not wait another day. That night he left the estate alone, wearing a black leather jacket, his gray eyes cold as winter ice. Alina stood at the living room window and watched his car vanish into the dark, her chest tightening with worry. She did not ask where he was going. She did not need to ask. She knew. The bar sat on the south side of Chicago, the kind of place Travis often drifted to after work. Alexei had investigated carefully and reported that tonight Travis would be there alone, drinking, complaining to friends about the wife who had run away. Dimitri walked into the bar as if he owned it, and in a way he did.
The place was on his territory, protected by his people, and the owner owed him more favors than he could count. Travis sat at the counter with his back to the door, a glass of whiskey in his hand, already half gone. He did not sense the danger closing in until Dimitri slid onto the stool beside him. "Travis Kane," Dimitri said as calmly as if he were making small talk about the weather. "At last we meet." Travis turned, his eyes cloudy with alcohol narrowing as he studied the stranger. "Who are you?" he asked, his words thick. "I am the man you should have known about a long time ago." Dimitri signaled the bartender to pour him a drink. "I am the man keeping your former wife." Travis's eyes widened. The drunken haze evaporated in a single heartbeat as he realized who stood beside him. He had heard of Dimitri Harrington. Everyone in the circles that mattered had heard. He just never imagined that man had anything to do with Alina. "Alina is my wife," Travis growled, his hand tightening around the glass. "She belongs to me. You have no right to keep her." "Former wife," Dimitri corrected, still calm. "And she does not belong to anyone. She is a human being, not an object." "What do you know about her? How long have you known her?" Travis ground out. "I lived with her for 4 years. She is mine." Dimitri took a sip of his drink, unhurried, unbothered. His composure only fed Travis's anger. "Do you know who I am?" Travis lowered his voice, leaning in as if sharing a secret. "I am a cop. I have coworkers everywhere. I can turn your life into hell." Dimitri laughed softly, almost gently, yet so cold that people nearby turned to look. "Are you threatening me?" he asked, setting his glass down and turning fully toward Travis. "You, a police officer, suspended under internal investigation for violent conduct, are threatening me?" Travis's face drained. "How do you know?" "I know everything about you, Travis Kane." Dimitri leaned in, his voice dropping into a dangerous whisper. "I know you took bribes from the Martinez gang last year. I know you covered up a drug case on the South Side. I know you have a bank account in the Cayman Islands that the department does not know about." He smiled without warmth. "Do you want me to keep going?" Travis's face shifted from pale to a dark, angry flush, fear and fury tangling together. He lurched to his feet, the glass slamming against the counter as it tipped and spilled. "Are you trying to threaten me?" "No, I'm giving you a choice." Dimitri stood as well, a full head taller, dominating him with height and with something heavier than height. Choice 1. You disappear from Alina's life completely forever. You do not look for her. You do not contact her. You do not speak her name. You leave Chicago and you never come back. And if I refuse, Dimitri stepped closer until only a breath of space remained between them. His gray eyes locked onto Travis's. And for the first time, Travis Kane felt real fear. Choice 2, Dimitri said, his voice smooth as velvet and sharp as a blade, is that I show you why people fear the name Harrington, and believe me, you will not like that choice. Travis swallowed hard, survival screaming in the back of his mind, but arrogance and the remnants of alcohol pushed him into the worst decision of his life. I'm not afraid of you, he said, his voice shaking even as he tried to sound hard. Alina is mine, and I'm going to take her back. Dimitri studied him for a long moment, then stepped back, his face unreadable. You just chose choice 2, he said evenly. I hope you do not regret it. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Travis standing there with rage boiling in his blood and a fear he would not admit, creeping slowly up his spine. Travis refused to listen to the warning. The next night, drunk and furious, he decided to prove that no one could threaten him. He drove to the Harrington estate at 2 o'clock in the morning, climbed over the back fence, believing the darkness would hide him. He was wrong. Infrared cameras captured every step from the moment his hand touched the fence. Motion sensors detected him before his feet ever reached the grass. The security team watched him on their screens, waiting, letting him move deeper onto the grounds before they acted. Alexei called Dimitri at 2:15. Alina was asleep when she heard the knock on her door. She jolted awake, her heart hammering, the survival instinct from 4 years living with Travis still alive in her bones. She opened the door and found Dimitri there already fully dressed, his gray eyes glinting in the dark. "Travis is on the property," he said, calm in a way that felt almost unreal. "Security has him contained. The police are on the way." Alina's legs went weak. Did he get in? He climbed the fence. Illegal entry onto private property. Dimitri took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "This time he does not get away. We have evidence. We have witnesses. And the police coming are my people." They went downstairs together. Through the living room window, Alina could see flashlight beams sweeping across the garden, could hear the security team shouting, and then from far away, the wail of police sirens growing closer. Travis was caught in the eastern corner of the garden, right beside the stone angel statue Nadia had chosen years ago. He was so drunk he could barely stand, still screaming for his wife, while two security men held his arms pinned behind his back. When the police car pulled up at the gate, Dimitri led Alina outside. She did not want to see Travis. She had hoped she would never have to face him again, but she knew she had to do this. She had to end it. Travis lifted his head when he saw her step out of the front doors hand in hand with Dimitri. His blurry eyes flashed with a wild, unhinged fury. "Alina!" he roared, thrashing against the men, restraining him. "You're mine! You hear me? You will always be mine. This bastard can't keep you forever." Alina stood there, looking at the man she once called her husband, the man who hit her, who choked her, who frightened her into silence for 4 years. She looked at him, and for the first time she did not feel afraid. She felt pity. She stepped forward and stopped a few paces away, close enough for him to hear her clearly, far enough to be safe. Dimitri stood directly behind her, his hand resting lightly on her back, a quiet reminder that she was not alone. "Travis," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I'm not yours. I never was. I belong to myself, and you have no power over me anymore." "You don't get to leave me," Travis bellowed. "You're nothing without me." Alina shook her head, a sad smile flickering across her mouth. "Without you, I am everything," she said. "I am strong. I am loved. I have a family. I have a future." She paused. "And you will have nothing." She turned and walked away, not looking back, even as Travis kept screaming behind her. Dimitri walked at her side, his hand gripping hers, and she felt as if a massive stone had finally been lifted off her chest. The police put Travis into the car, and the sirens faded into the night. Alexei came to them with a tablet in his hand. "The security camera video has been sent to the prosecutor," he reported, along with the record of restraining order violations, illegal entry, and the evidence of corruption we collected. He glanced at Dimitri. "Your lawyer says he will not be released on bail, and with all these charges, he is facing at least 8 years in prison. 8 years. 8 years with Travis behind bars. 8 years Alina could live without fearing his shadow at the door." She looked up at Dimitri, her eyes filling. "Is it over?" she whispered. Dimitri pulled her into his arms, his lips pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "It's over," he confirmed. "He will never hurt you again. Never." Alina buried her face against his chest and cried, not from fear, not from pain. She cried from relief, from freedom, from finally getting out. And on the second floor, behind the bedroom curtains, Lila watched with ocean blue eyes shining. She had woken to the noise, had seen everything from beginning to end. And when she saw Alina Mom standing straight, facing the cruel man, the little girl smiled. "Alina, Mom is brave," she whispered into the darkness. "Like Mama Nadia, like who I will become." 2 months after the night Travis was arrested, the Harrington estate was filled with light and laughter. Travis had been sentenced to 8 years in prison after a trial that lasted 2 weeks. The evidence of corruption, abuse, illegal entry, and restraining order violations piled so high that no lawyer could save him. Alina testified in court, standing straight before the bench, telling the story of 4 years of hell in a steady voice she never believed she could have. Dimitri sat in the row behind her, his gray eyes never leaving her for a single second, like an anchor keeping her from sinking into the sea of pain inside her memories. When the judge read the sentence, Alina cried.
Not because revenge had been satisfied, but because at last she was truly free. Life after that began to rebuild itself from broken pieces. Alina moved into a bedroom on the second floor, a room beside Lila's and across from Dimitri. She was not the housekeeper anymore. She was part of the family officially. Undeniably, Dimitri changed the paperwork, adding her name to the list of people authorized to make medical and educational decisions for Lila, as if she were the child's biological mother. Lila continued seeing her therapist, but the sessions were gentler now. She talked non-stop, telling stories about everything from dreams to fears, from memories of Mama Nadia to her love for Alina Mom. Doctor. Lynn told Dimitri that Lila was making extraordinary progress, that she would be all right, that love and stability were the best medicine for any wound. Alina began her own healing too. She enrolled in courses to earn back her nursing certification, the one Travis had forced her to abandon years before. Every night after Lila went to sleep, Alina sat in the library with her books, reviewing, studying, preparing for the exam. Dimitri often sat nearby working on his laptop, but sometimes he would look up, catch her eye, and smile as if simply seeing her was enough to make him happy. One evening, when she was struggling with a particularly difficult chapter, Dimitri set his laptop aside and moved to sit closer. "You're going to do it," he said, his voice gentle. "You can do anything you want." "You really believe that?" she asked, doubtful. "I know it." He took her hand. "You survived 4 years with him. You had the courage to run. You stood up in court and faced him. What is an exam compared to that?" Alina smiled, and for the first time she believed him. Lila changed too in subtle but undeniable ways. She no longer checked the locks every night. She no longer flinched at loud noises. She ran through the garden with laughter echoing behind her, drew bright pictures with 4 people instead of 3, and called Alina Mom, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. One Sunday afternoon, as the 3 of them sat in the living room watching cartoons, Lila suddenly lifted her head and asked, "Alina, Mom, when do I get a baby?" Alina and Dimitri looked at each other, a secret smile passing between them. Alina placed her hand over her belly where a tiny life was growing day by day. "Maybe sooner than you think," she said. It took Lila a few seconds to understand. Then she squealed with joy, jumped down from her chair, and threw her arms around Alina. "I'm going to be a big sister. I'm going to be a big sister." Dimitri stood and wrapped his arms around the 2 most important girls in his life, and for the first time in so many years, he felt his heart become whole. Standing in the bright kitchen, where the scent of blini and honey still lingered the way it had on the day Lila first spoke, Alina looked back on her journey, from an abused woman to a survivor, from someone running to someone who had found a home, from a broken heart to a complete family. Healing was not a destination. It was a journey. And that journey was so much more beautiful with someone walking beside you. This story leaves us with a profound lesson about the power of love and courage. Sometimes the strongest voice comes from those who have been silent for too long. Sometimes the most wounded people carry the greatest ability to heal others. And sometimes family is not where you were born, but where you are loved and accepted. Alina found her voice when she bravely stepped out of the darkness. Lila found her voice again when she wanted to protect the people she loved, and Dimitri found the light again when he opened his heart to love once more. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel, tap like, and share this video so more people can hear meaningful stories every day. How did this story make you feel? Did it connect to your real life in any way? We would truly love to read what's deep in your heart in the comments below. Wishing everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, peace, and happiness each day. Thank you for being here with us. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next